All right, hi, and welcome to our lecture today on the continuation of the senses. And so we're going to take a look at some more of vision. Take a look at, get it? That's so lame. All right, so let's go there, get rid of that. And make my PowerPoint work. There we go. Okay, so we talked about taste and smell. We talked about the associated structures of the eye. Pathway of light through the eye, so all of the refractive media, the things that are going to bend the light rays so that they focus on the back of the eyeball. Okay, so this is where we need to be. So this is what the retina looks like. There are several layers to the retina with multiple cells that are involved in the collecting of light. So the actual photoreceptors right here, the rods and cones. And then we have the other cells that are within amacrine cells, bipolar cells, ganglion cells that are ultimately going to transduce the signal from photoreception to a nervous signal, and then they will send the nervous signal on through the nervous portion of the retina and then on into the optic nerve. So if we take a look at a photomicrograph of a retina, so the light, let me just show where the light is coming in. Oh, whoops, wrong button. All right, there we go. All right, so, oh, there we go. I don't want white. All right, so the light is going to be, sorry, moving in this direction, and it's going to pass through all of these layers, but it's not going to affect any of these layers because none of them is pigmented. Is pigmented. I just read pigmented. None of them are the photoreceptors. So the photoreceptors are right here in these cells right here. Okay, so you have nuclei of rods and cones down here. And so then we have the rods and cones up here in this section. So that would be this section right here. And then we have the rest of the cells that then are going to carry the signal. Once these guys in this layer become activated, then they'll send the signal this way, and then the signal will go on to your brain or to your nerve, and then it'll take it to your brain. We have this pigmented layer here in the back of the retina to absorb the light rays. Once they come through, we don't want them bouncing around in the back of the eyeball so that you get weird signals. However, if you take a look at a lot of animals that are nocturnal, or even just prey animals so that they can capture more light, they'll have an area in the back of their eye that instead of absorbing the light rays will reflect light rays. Owls in particular, it's called a tapetum. And the purpose of the tapetum is to reflect light. So whenever you see an animal whose eyes shine in the night, that's the light is reflecting off the tapetum because their pupils are really wide. So, you know, deer in the headlight, rabbits, cats, I don't know. But owls in particular, so the little bit of light that comes in, and then it bounces off the tapetum, and then it stimulates the rods more so that they can see more at night. Okay. Adaptations for stuff is just absolutely beautiful. I love it. All right, so remember too that the rods are for black and white. We'll just put black and white. So light and dark, and then cones are for color vision. So we don't have as many cones as we do rods. Lots and lots of rods to capture variations in the amount of light that we see, the intensity of light. So here shows, this is nice, it shows the retina, and then it shows these ganglion cells and how their neuron or their axons are all going to come together and then come down into the optic nerve and then pass into your brain. We also have the central artery and vein of the retina to nourish the back of your eyeball. To nourish your eyeball. And then right here in this optic disc is that area where there are no rods and cones. So you can see, oh yeah, there's no rods and cones because the retina is going to go out from either side of that optic disc, or that where the optic nerve comes in. Additionally, if we take a look at the blood vessels in here, it's going to make the eye look very orange because the retina is yellow, but then you've got the red blood vessels shining through. So this, you know, it makes it look very, very orangey red when the eye doctor is taking a look at your eye through the ophthalmoscope. Here is the macula lutea, right in the very center would be the fovea centralis. And so the optometrist or ophthalmologist, who's ever looking at your eye, is always going to be checking to see, are there any irregularities, tears, stuff, weird stuff going on in the back of your eyeball. Okay. All right. So let's talk about constriction and dilation. So here is, we saw this in lab, a little bit different diagram, but here is the iris of your eye. Here is the pupil of your eye. So you have two sets of muscles in the iris. You have constrictor muscles that go around in a circle like this, okay, and they'll be innervated by parasympathetic nerves. So ocular motor has a role in parasympathetic stimulation as far as making the pupil constrict. Okay, so make sure you know the constrictor muscles of the eye are innervated by parasympathetic. You could also remember cranial nerve 3 is the one that's doing that. Okay, then we have sympathetic stimulation is, so this is constriction. Yeah, I'm just gonna put that. Okay, and then this is dilation. So when sympathetic stimulation, oh, that's horrible. Oh, look at that. Dilation. Okay, that's a little bit better. So sympathetic is going to innervate these muscles here that pull out. So when they contract, they're going to pull out on the edge of the pupil and make it bigger. Okay, so sympathetic stimulation causes dilation. Parasympathetic stimulation causes constriction. And you don't need, it's just one of the thoracic nerves so that goes to the eye. So you don't need to know which nerve goes to 9, but I would remember CN3. Okay. All right, so how do we look at things? What is going on? I've already alluded to this, described it already in somewhat detail, but we're going to take a look at it again. So we'll look at what your eye is doing when you're looking. Oh, I didn't mute. Hang on. Mute participants. Okay. All right, so here's what's happening when you're looking at things far away, when you're looking at things close up. So let's take a look at the angle of the light rays when we're looking at things far away. So here you can see the light rays are coming in pretty straight. Now what this is showing is that what is at the top of the image that you're looking at when it comes into your eye, the lens is going to invert it because lenses do that. So they take it up here and then invert it. And so then what you see in the front of your eye is right side up actually lands on your retina as upside down. And so your brain has to fix that. And I'm going to tell you about that in just a minute. So the light rays are pretty parallel. Like it says, nearly parallel rays from a distant object means that the ciliary body is going to relax and the suspensory ligaments are going to pull on the lens and make it long and skinny. Okay, so the lens is flattened for distant vision. And that's why your eyes don't get tired when you look at things far away. So when you're in the movie theater for a couple hours watching the movie, and as long as you're not like super up close to the screen, your eyes won't be tired, your eye muscles won't be tired. Whereas if you're reading the book for that same length of time, here's what has to happen. So here the light rays, instead of having, you know, traveling for a long distance and being pretty parallel when they reach your eye, they are going to diverge. So they're going to come up here, they're going to reach the cornea at an angle. So the cornea is going to bend them, but it's not going to bend them enough to reach the fovea in the back So what the lens has to do is shrink up. So it has to go this way. So I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to contract the ciliary muscle, which is then going to squish up, well, it's actually going to loosen the suspensory ligaments that allows the eyeball to go back to its original shape. But you're scrunching it up. So your ciliary muscles have to contract in order for this to happen. Again, the image will still be inverted. So the lens will bulge for close vision. And we'll talk more about that bulging in just a second. Okay, so let's talk about upside down and right side up once you pass through a lens. So how does your brain deal with that situation? So we wanted to experiment with that. We wanted to see, can your brain change what is coming in, you know, the direction that the object is landing on your, you know, is it right side up, upside down, whatever, landing back there on the back of your eye. So you can actually buy these. Oh, I'm going to write a note. You can buy these at Amazon, but they're glasses that if you put them on, they're not the beer goggles, but if you put them on, they make everything look upside down. So when you're walking along, the sky is on the floor and the floor is up above you. And so they did this experiment long time ago, back in the 70s when I was growing up. And so they had this guy put on these glasses. And so when he opened his eyes, everything was upside down because there was another lens that was out here. So that when everything came into his eye, it was right side up. So the R would have been like this. So his brain would have perceived it as upside down. So he had to wear those glasses 24/7. Just, you know, if he woke up in the morning, he couldn't open his eyes and put his glasses on if he didn't wear them to bed. So he wore those glasses for an entire week. And that's pretty tricky. And it would make me throw up to, you know, have to look up to watch where I'm walking. And so he woke up one morning after about a week and his vision, when he had the glasses on, had corrected itself. So when he wore the glasses, everything was right side up again. So his brain realized where up and down was from the other cues that it was getting from his body and said, you know what, this is weird. We need to fix this. And so it did. And so his vision went to being able to see things right side up, even though they were in fact upside down. So then the researchers were like, well, I wonder how long it's going to take for it to go back, or if it's going to go back. Well, I think they were pretty confident that it would go back. And so he took off the glasses and walked around for about a day. And then I think it was even just the next day that he woke up in the morning and his vision had corrected itself. And so his brain went back to its normal state. But I thought that was really cool. And so I've always wanted to try it. And then I was watching an episode of Good Mythical Morning, and Rhett and Link had a pair of those goggles that they were playing with. And so I thought, ooh, I got to order a pair of those for our class. So you guys won't get to play with them, but hopefully we won't be in lockdown for the rest of our lives, and we'll get to play with them in another class. Okay, so that's how vision works. Distant vision, close vision. So remember that in distant vision, the ciliary muscles are relaxed. Okay, that's why your eyes don't get tired, and the lens is thin and flat. And so this is when we're looking at things that are farther away than 20 feet. Then for close vision, these are things we're looking at less than 20 feet. So that's when the lens needs to recoil and bulges as the ciliary muscle contracts to pull the ciliary body up and in. So that's your eye muscles inside of your eyeball are getting tired, and they're making your eyes tired when you look at things up close. Now the maximum bulge occurs at 4 inches. So we really cannot see anything up closer than 4 inches and have it still be in focus. So if you put your hand, you know, like 6 inches out in front of your face and start moving it in, you'll notice that your hand gets blurry and you'll start to see double vision because your eyes can't accommodate. What that means is come together in the center so that you can continue to see a binocular vision, or I mean a single thing with your binocular vision. You'll start to see what the two eyes are seeing, and your brain can't resolve that. because you can only cross your eyes so far. And so anything closer in, then you start to, it gets obscured because your eyes can't handle that. Okay, so let's talk about some eye disorders. The first disorder that we want to look at is astigmatism. So this is when either the lens or the cornea are not equally curved, and so they could be bumpy, they could have different thicknesses, and when that happens, we get areas of blurry vision, but not the whole entire thing that we look at isn't blurry, it's just portions of what we're looking at is blurry. The second thing, I'll show you a picture of what it looks like in a minute, is a cataract. So the lens of your eye is made out of transparent protein, and that protein over time is going to denature, and it's going to denature due to age and ultraviolet light exposure. Or you may have a congenital defect. Some babies are born with cataracts. Some people have a genetic cataract disorder that makes their cataracts develop much earlier than like in your 70s, which is typically when we do cataract surgery, 70s or 80s. So this is just a reflection of the lamp that was taking the picture that was illuminating the eye. But here is the lens. We should be able to see right back into the back side of the eye. Here the pupil's been super dilated, okay, so that your iris is super, super thin. So see how cloudy? That's going to mean that you can't see obviously you can't see anything. But here's what's going to happen with telling if you have cataracts. So remember I told you that with macular degeneration, you lose your center vision. With cataracts, you lose your peripheral vision because the clouding of your lens happens from the outside towards the inside of your lens. And by the time you get to this point, you probably can't see anything out of your eyes at all. And then what we have to do is go in and remove the lens. So we pulverize the lens, we suck out all the little pieces, and then we slip in a new lens, and away you go, I guess. That's how you do it. Before we could put artificial lenses in, what we used to do was just take out the lens and then change your glasses prescription so that you didn't need a lens in there anymore. Your lens is really just for up close vision anyway. So they said that they would correct for the near point of vision. So your up close stuff, you would have to have like bifocal glasses so that you could focus at things up close. So anyway, that's what cataracts are. So remember I said age and ultraviolet light exposure. So you guys have to be very, very careful living in Arizona, a place where we have a lot of ultraviolet exposure, that you want to wear glasses that have UV protection. So sunglasses, or even if you wear glasses, my glasses have UV coating on them so that I don't have to just wear my sunglasses when I'm outside. But it can't just be, you know, $5 bin of sunglasses at Walmart. They have to be UVA and UVB coated lenses so that they will protect you against those wavelengths of ultraviolet light. Okay, so that's a cataract. All right, glaucoma, I mentioned about that too, is when we have too much aqueous humor that could press on the optic nerve and actually kill the nerve as it's coming into your eye. So here's what happens. So over here in the ciliary processes, this is where aqueous humor gets made, and the arrows indicate where it travels. So it's going to come up here between the iris and the lens. It's going to go out through the pupil. It's going to go into this anterior segment here in your eye, and then it's going to drain into this little hole at the base of the cornea as it goes back into the sclera, called the scleral venous sinus. And so we're always producing aqueous humor, watery fluid, then that's going to drain away. Now, when you have glaucoma, you could have one of two problems. Either one, that your sinus is plugged up and can't absorb all the fluid that you're making, or two, your ciliary body is making too much fluid and your sinus can't keep up with it. So blockage in the sinus or too much fluid. So in my mom's case with her glaucoma, they put her on a steroid, so a topical steroid, so it would seep through into her eye, and then it would inhibit the aqueous humor production in her ciliary body. So eventually she stopped making too much fluid. So whatever happened, I don't know. But then she didn't have to have her eye drops anymore. So because I have glaucoma in my family, then I need to make sure I go in and I have an eye test every year, and they do either the puff of air, so they blow the little air to see what the rebound is, or they'll numb your eye and then they'll touch it with a little thing that taps your eye that measures how much pressure is in there. So either way, I don't like either one of those, but whatevs. I don't want to go blind. Oh, because yeah, here's a thing with glaucoma. You don't know that you have glaucoma until you're blind, and then we can't do anything for you anymore once you become blind. So we need to test, we need to be preemptive, and then do things like with my mom when they had her do the eye drops. Okay, now many of us seem to suffer from some lack of vision ability, and so oops, hang on. Okay. Some of you may be farsighted, some of you may be nearsighted, have to wear glasses. So now we're going to talk about, well, what's the deal? So if you are farsighted, that means you can, oh, I just realized I spelled that wrong. How many years has it been like that? I don't know. Let me fix that. Okay. So this means you can't see up close. You can see things far away just fine. You don't need glasses to see distance, but you need to have glasses to see up close, because, and I'll show you why in a minute. If you're myopic, then you're nearsighted, which means you can see up close, but you can't see things far away. So in my particular case, as you know, I wear glasses, and I can't see things far away at all. I have like 2200 vision. So what people can normally see 200 feet away, how well they can see it, I have to be 20 feet away before I can see the same as them. So I'm really, really blind, almost legally blind without my glasses on. So thankfully we can correct vision, because mine is really, really bad. So what's going on? Well, this is a really good way to show you what's happening with your eyes. So we have what's known as an emmetropic eye. That's your normal eye. And so what happens is that at 20 feet, because that's what we're looking at when we look at the eye chart. This is, the light rays are as parallel as they're just starting to be parallel, and this is where their focal point should be, is right here on the fovea centralis. If you are myopic, if you are nearsighted, when you look at things 20 feet away, what happens is that your eyeball is too long, so your fovea centralis is way back here. But look at where the fovea centralis would be for your eye structures in making your focal point. So now, because light travels in a straight line, once they've come to a point, then they're going to spread out beyond that point. And so I only get a fraction of the actual light rays that are coming from an object, and so it makes things look blurry, because I'm not getting the entire picture. I am not getting all the light rays that come into the eye. All right, now what about farsighted people? Well, farsighted people, what happens if we're looking at things any closer than 20 feet is that because the fovea is so long, or the fovea would be back here, that their eyeball is so short and squatty that they're only getting some of the light rays before the focal point. So what do we have to do? Well, we have to change the focal length. Is it possible to change a focal length? Absolutely. If anybody's a photographer and has used lenses on a camera, you'll totally get focal length. But so here's what we're doing. So if I want to shorten, what do I need to do? I want to lengthen the focal length. So I want far away things to come into focus. I need to use a concave lens. So here's what's happening is I have a lens that's skinny in the middle and fat on the edges. And what that does is, as the light comes in, it scatters the light so that my eye will then focus it on the back of my eyeball. So that's what my glasses look like. They're skinnier in the center than they are on the edges. In fact, back in the 70s when I first started wearing glasses, we couldn't make glasses like we have today, so we have those big giant Coke bottle looking lenses. So yeah, in order to make the inside as thick as I needed to see as well as I needed to see, the edges look like the bottom of a glass Coke bottle. I mean, just super thick, and my eyes look super tiny in my glasses. But like in my daughter's case, she is, besides her keratoconus, she's also farsighted. So she needs to have a convex lens in her glasses. And so, and you can actually feel when you like wash my glasses, it feels really thicker on the edges and thin in the middle. When I'm cleaning my daughter's glasses, it's very fat in the middle and then narrow on the edges, just like a magnifying glass, because that's what you're doing. You're magnifying the things up close. So it's making those light rays bend so that the focal point is shortened so that it reaches the back of her eyeball, for example. And so her eyes look bigger in her glasses because they're magnifying. Mine look tiny in mine because they're demagnifying, I guess, so to speak. Okay, so there's how we do. So emmetropic is a normal eye, myopic is a nearsighted eye, hyperopic is a farsighted eye. All right, what is color blindness? Color blindness is a sex-linked recessive trait, which means it's found on the X chromosome. And no, yes, it is. I said that right. And so if you only have one, if you're a male, then you only have one gene because you only have one X chromosome. And if you got the bad gene, there's not another gene to make up for the problem. Females, on the other hand, we need to have two bad genes. So we would have to have a colorblind dad and a carrier colorblind mom who had a colorblind father in order for a female to be colorblind. So she'd need a colorblind dad and a colorblind grandpa in order to be colorblind herself. So what happens is that we do not have the right number of cones, and cones come in three kinds. I guess I didn't have this in this thingy, but so we've got red cones, blue cones, green cones, and then they'll pick up different wavelengths of light. And so when you're colorblind, you're missing some of the cones that you're supposed to have. And so all you're looking at is just shades of gray with the rods. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's it on vision. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and get into sound. All right, so how does sound work? Well, first of all, sound is a vibration. I just lost my thought. So let's take the receptors, for example, that we need for sound. Okay, they're grouped into that group called mechanoreceptors. So mechanoreceptors will detect vibrations, they'll detect sound, they'll detect touch, pressure, a lot of different ways that the parts of the cell are being moved or change their position, and then they send that signal to the brain. So with sound, as I'm speaking, I'm creating waves, physical waves in the air, that in the atmosphere that are traveling away from my mouth. And if you have a receiver somewhere where those waves can be picked up, then you hear something. And so in your ear, you have cells that are going to move. And we already talked about, we have the hair cells that are going to move up and down and strike that tectorial membrane and vibrate, well, depolarize, and then send that signal. Not that they'll vibrate, but they'll bend and then send that signal back to your brain as sound. So the object that's producing the sound has to be vibrating. So my vocal cords, for example, are vibrating, and it must travel through a medium. So it has to travel through air. Sound travels best through air. It can travel through water, not as well. It can travel across a desktop. I know that if here in my office, if I put my cell phone on my desk somewhere, you know, close to the door, and my cell phone vibrates, I still can, I think it's coming from right next to me, but it's clear over there by the door, which meant the sound waves traveled through the desktop, which is possible. You know that if you've done the tin can with a piece of string in between. So that, I mean, that's a basic telephone. So you have to have something that will collect the sound, and then you have the string that the sound can move along, and then you have the receiver on the other end that is again going to collect the sound and amplify it and transfer it to your ear. So that's what sound is. So you have to have either air, water, or solid. So out in outer space, there is no sound. It's just nothing. Because there's no, once you get past our atmosphere, because there's nothing out there for the sound to vibrate through. Okay, so pitch is the frequency of the sound wave, or of course, is it a low note? Is it a high note? And you know the difference between things that are really low and things that are really high. The higher the frequency of the sound wave, the higher the pitch of the sound. So little kids with high-pitched voices have little short vocal cords that are producing very fast vibrations because they don't have a long length to travel along. And then when our voices deepen as we age, or if we're males and we're little boys before and they become males, or grow up, go through puberty, that testosterone is going to the larynx to deepen the voice. So we can hear between 1500 and 4000 hertz. Hertz are just the units for pitch, which is cycles per second. So how many, and I'll show you a picture, how many crests do we get per second? And so that's, anyway. Okay, so loudness, so pitch is the frequency, loudness is the amplitude. So loudness is how much energy, how much displacement is going on in that sound. So you could have someone singing a very high note, but sing it loudly so that the vocal cords are vibrating hard and fast, or someone who's singing, you know, like a really loud low note. That means the sound is being pushed through, the air is being pushed through, but the vibration is very slow to produce a low, deep sound. I mean, a loud, deep sound. Loudness is measured in decibels, and we have to be careful because remember the hair cells are bouncing up and down and striking that tectorial membrane. And the louder we listen to things, the greater the force with which those cells will strike the membrane. And those hair cells are so very delicate that if they continuously strike the tectorial membrane at that pitch, then eventually those cells will be damaged to the point where they will not send signals anymore, and you will lose your hearing at that pitch. Now, it's rare that we listen to a pitch, only one pitch super loud. I mean, if you listen to, you know, somebody pulls up next to you in the big old truck with the subwoofers that are just like crazy loud, it's not just one continuous tone. You know, you have a variety of tones in there, and so that's all too loud, because if they have the windows rolled up and you have the windows rolled up and you can still hear it super loud, you know it's killing their ears in there. So you guys have got to be careful when you're listening to things loudly, because you can suffer permanent damage if you listen to things too loudly. All right, so what is our limit? Okay, loudness without pain is 120 decibels. To go to a concert, if you're not sitting, you know, standing in the, you know, right up against the stage, if you're back in the nosebleed section, you're probably safe in the nosebleed, but up close, you're probably not. 130 decibels causes pain. And like I said, the more you listen to it, and the more you listen to things greater than 90 decibels, you'll get severe hearing loss. Because of this, we have OSHA guidelines that will prevent you from being exposed in the workplace to decibel levels greater than 90 without hearing protection. So if, you know, you operate a jackhammer, you operate heavy machinery or something like that, you have to have ear protection. Normal conversation is 50 decibels. A noisy restaurant is 70 decibels, and rock concerts about 120 decibels. But then again, that depends on where are you sitting. So I don't know. Okay, now this graph that I put in your notes is not, you do not memorize this. This is just for your own interest sake. Because it's really important, you guys like to listen to things loudly, and especially with our AirPod technology, I mean, just any kind of earbud stuff, it's just super concentrated in your ears. And friends, the more it's concentrated, the worse it's going to be for you. So when I was in 11th grade, so this was 1981, I had a drafting class, and we're sitting in drafting. One of the guys that sat behind me had a Walkman, and oh my gosh, I had not seen a Walkman before. I knew that they existed, but I didn't know anybody that had a Walkman because they were really expensive back then. And yeah, if you don't know what a Walkman is, you can Google that back in ancient history. So I had a transistor radio where you had one little earbud that you stuck in your ear, but you know, how loud's a transistor radio going to be? Not. So he had this awesome Sony Walkman. And so I said, hey, can I listen to that? And he goes, sure. So I put the headphones on, and you know what the headphones look like from the 80s? They were just those black spongy things, you know, but we'd never had anything like that. And so I put those on, and oh my gosh, you know, it sounded like it was totally surround, like I was immersed in the sound and everything. And so then I was talking to him, but of course I didn't know how loud I was. And you know, when you're not sure how loud, when you can't hear yourself, you don't know how loud you are. So I'm turned around talking to him, and my drafting teacher, he goes, you need to be quiet. He didn't make me take the headphones off, though. I thought that was really nice because he didn't really care, because, you know, what are we doing? We're just drawing things. And so anyway, I was a little embarrassed by that. But now that the technology that we have today, as far as sound is concerned, be so very careful. Okay. So how long can we listen to 90 decibels without damage? 8 hours. So that's why 90 decibels is the limit as far as OSHA guidelines are concerned. 95 decibels, we just raise it 5 more decibels, but that cuts our exposure time in half. So we can only listen to 4 hours at 95 decibels before we start suffering damage. 100 is 2 hours, 105, and so on. So you can only listen to 115 decibels for 15 minutes before you're going to suffer some damage. So be careful. I'm an old lady, so yeah, when I go to a concert, I take earplugs with me, just because, man, as the older I get, the worse it feels. But I'm an old lady, so I'm almost a grandma, so I can do that. Now, you gun shooting friends. My son we were talking the other night about sound and hearing and stuff. I can't remember why we were talking about it. And he goes, man, there were only 2 times in my life when I thought that I had damaged my hearing. He says, one time I went shooting with Dad and I didn't wear ear protection. I said, you dumb kid. I used a bad word, but I'm like, what? When he came home and he said, I didn't use ear protection, my ears are hurting. And I'm like, do I have to buy you earplugs for when you go shooting? Because so help me, don't let that ever happen again. He goes, no, JC bought me some, his wife bought him some because she works for an audiologist. He says, I just didn't have them with me. I'm like, you are stupid. Do not ever do that again. And then the other time he was at a Macklemore concert and they were right by the stage, and he was like, oh my gosh, it's so loud. And he felt like his eardrum had ruptured, and it could have, but your eardrum grows back, so it's okay. But so gun shooting people, look at what you have. So various guns of various calibers have different sounds that they make. So I shot a 357 once without ear protection, and yeah, I felt like I had just blown an eardrum. So so that's why I was so mad at him, because I was just a dumb kid. I was like 20 back then, and went shooting with a friend, and I didn't have ear protection like I should have. So Be careful of your ears. You're born with all you're ever going to have. And then this just shows different kinds of what different things produce different sounds. Okay. All right. So how does hearing work? We've been through this when we did lab, but we'll just quickly go through it again so that you get an idea. So sound is going to come through the external auditory meatus or auditory canal, and it's going to hit, well, let's go this way. So sound, let me get a little drawing thing. Green will work. Green and, okay. So sound is going to come in, boom, 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 boom. It's going to come in your ear, and then it's going to strike the tympanic membrane or your eardrum. That's going to get your eardrum vibrating back and forth with the same frequency and same amplitude as the sound with which you were listening to. Then that's going to set up vibrations in the 3 ear ossicles. So the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. Now, when sound reaches the inner ear or the middle ear, sorry, what happens is that these 3 bones make it even louder than what it was coming in from the tympanic membrane. So whatever the amplitude was here, it's higher as it enters the oval window. So that's why we have to be super careful, is that, yeah, it's louder when it gets into the inner ear and the cochlea than it was actually even coming in. Okay, so sound's going to go into the round window from the stapes. If we look at this next picture, this just shows, like, if you were in the cochlea, what would you see? So the external auditory meatus is into the screen. So I can't see that because it's facing me. And then here's the tympanic membrane right here. So then we vibrate the malleus, we vibrate the incus, and we vibrate the stapes. And then the stapes will set up, because I'm in the oval window right here. I'm actually in the cochlea from this view. All right. And so then we'll get to where the sound goes here in just a minute, because this is what I told you about in lab as well. So I just want to show you some of these other pictures. So as sound is produced, it makes these little compressions which correspond to crests, and then we have these rarefactions which correspond to troughs in a regular sine wave pattern. And so this is how the sound travels and vibrates back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then reaches. So that's what it's doing as it's reaching your ear. Okay, so here is the difference between pitch and amplitude. So here is a high-pitched sound, is this red right here. So you can see there's more crests in a second or in this time frame than there are blue ones. And so this is a higher pitch, this is a lower pitch. And then here's amplitude. So this would be a soft sound. It doesn't strike the tympanic membrane or the rest of your ear structures very hard. And this one does. Okay, so this one strikes it much more loudly. And then if we go into here, this is the sound. So this is the amplitude, how strong, reaches the tympanic membrane. Then it hits the middle ear bones. And then you can see it's amplified. It's like twice as loud as it was coming in. So that's why it's so important to not listen to things too loudly. And then it decreases as it goes through the rest of the ear structures. Okay, so I think that's where I'm going to leave it for now. So we'll take a look at low frequency, high frequency stuff. And how we distinguish between the two in the organ of Corti or in the spiral organ. And then we'll talk about balance, and then we'll be finished. So we don't have much left. All right, so let me just tell you again, as far as our exam on this last section. So it'll be due Monday. I should have it up Friday. Today's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yeah, so I should be able to have that posted by Friday, so that sometime on Friday, so that you can take it anytime you want by Monday night at 11:59 p.m. It has to be finished. Let's see what else. So then Monday and Wednesday, we'll probably review for the final. The final will be on Thursday, the 7th. And I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I'm doing for the final. It'll be online. It'll be in Canvas, but there's some special things that I need to do with it. So I will be letting you know once I make that executive decision about that. Okay, so that's it. Just keep plugging away. So go back, review your autonomic nervous system stuff, parasympathetic, sympathetic notes, and all of your senses stuff so that you'll be ready for the test this weekend. And well, I'll still see you on Friday. So, all right. So have a great weekend. No, not have a great weekend. Have a great day. I'll see you on Friday. I just won't see you tomorrow. Okay. See you on Friday. Oh, does anybody have any questions before we go?
I do, Miss Gillespie.
Okay. Yep.
From the lab practical, I know that if our answer doesn't match up with what was in the computer, it marks it as wrong, but will you go through and check our answers?
Absolutely.
No?
I did that with all your quizzes, so I'll do
Okay.
that with the lab practical too.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have any other questions? Okay, well, that's great. Then I will stop this and we'll see you on Friday.